Hello, hello, hello. I want to talk about the Jumanji of victimhood. What is Jumanji of victimhood? Jumanji, you know the movie, right? The old one, I would say, but the new ones, whatever. Like you can imagine this mess with like elephants, rhinos, crocodiles, all turning around in this tornado up to the game, something like this. This is like super messy, super dangerous. Everything you want to talk about, like you can imagine, like you can just imagine how is a Jumanji. What about Jumanji of victimhood? It's when different groups are just like calling for a specific suffering that they are identified themselves to, and they kind of pulling the blanket of who has not the biggest dick but the biggest victimhood, and that makes it like they want you to pity them, but they want you to feel sorry for something you haven't done individually speaking, but careful with this term, collectively speaking, and not even collectively like you've been part yourself in a group doing the bad things. No, you are very indirectly part of a group that has done the bad thing in theory according to many generations before, even if you cannot even know who is your great grandpa, so indirectly you're guilty for something that you have to feel guilty. So that's because if you don't feel guilty about that, you're wrong. That's when morality is often turned around the feeling of being guilty, and here you can see it. So in the race to victimhood, there is this Jumanji of victimhood. Like everybody have contradictions, but they don't even know they're holding the contradictions, and sometimes they haven't suffered the things individually speaking, but then they still say so because they heard others saying they suffered of it, and they identified themselves to these others quite easily, and then they can identify as well the ones who may be guilty, who actually aren't, but who cares? Like, as long as they make it binary, even if they say sometimes they're non-binary, whatever, then it's like good. They say sometimes they're not non-binary, but they still believe in the goodies and the baddies. So for example, I will give 2 examples. Like, let's say I can give more if it comes to my mind. So one can be like the vegans. Okay, you boo, you eat meat, not good. Okay, even if actually they owe their life to one of their ancestors or many of their ancestors who at some point of their life just got to eat meat, either to buy it, either to hunt it, and so on. But now they realize it's not good, so they can almost feel guilty they're alive, because if they're alive, is that at some point some of their ancestors got to eat meat, but whatever. And then they can say, okay, all should be vegan, or like just eating meat is wrong. Okay, so that's like the vegan minority, let's say, trying to be as loud as possible. Like, everyone's trying to be loud nowadays. Then you have the Muslim minority in the West, for example, or like anywhere, okay, Muslim minority that wants to do Laid. Laid is when you slaughter the sheep, to celebrate Ibrahim sacrifice of his son, that he was about to sacrifice his own son because God asked him to do so, but then in the last fraction of second, he has been replaced, fortunately, by a sheep. So now you need to kill a lamb, and then okay, that's fiesta, everybody party eating the lamb, but they have to kill the sheep, according to the ritual. So if you have 2 minorities being loud, one saying we want to practice our cultural stuff, even if it's not our country, but we want, okay, and the other saying everybody should stop eating meat, here you have a big contradiction in the revendications. And then you can have if one is saying you are not open-minded, you are boo-hoo-hoo, Islamophobic, Islamophobia is everywhere, I cannot practice peacefully all the rituals of my religion that I brought with me in my luggage, to this country with some generations. And the other is saying, yeah, these guys, they're doing animal slaughtering, it's not good, making the animal suffer, and this action of eating meat is not necessary neither, we should avoid this, and so on. Here you have one contradiction. Another one can be simply like the so-called non-binary trans who say trans or ladyboss. I don't get it sometimes. I think ladyboss, they just kept the Winnie as a souvenir, and the trans just like made have been monsters of Frankenstein of the amazing surgeon who has done amazing things through silence. It's provocative, of course, but like and for the Muslims, for example, the same group, this group I'm just mentioned earlier, this is really wrong to do that. Like they are only two sexes and everything. Even everything gay is wrong, you know. So it's even beyond transgenderism. It's also about the gay people and so on. All this LGBTQ thing, it's nonsense for Muslims, like who want to live according to their religion, let's say. Then in the progressism of LGBT, that sometimes a progress that is going too far because it's progressing to weird directions, maybe. This is right. Okay, so we want equal rights. Like we want to make children, but we don't want to have to come in a woman's vagina. So we're gonna find other ways, in vitro procreation, like a woman is gonna rent her belly for 9 months to hold someone like this child through the DNA, but actually she's also connected to the child and so on. All these things super wrong for the Muslims or other religious minorities, or even majority, whatever. It's super wrong for them. It's super right because it's equality and all. So then they want equal rights. And the Muslims say, no, we want to practice our religions and so on, but we don't want to live in a society where this is like praised. At least should not be advertised. We should even not talk about this. It's crazy that can exist, they can say. And the others saying, no, we want this happening, that we deserve equal rights, even if we don't want to make babies the natural way, we still want to have babies. So let's find a way. The same way we found a way to change the body, we will find a way through science to make babies, you know, instead of adopting so many orphans around the world who may need adoption, let's say. So there's another contradiction. See, so the trans or the LGBT or the gay who want babies, for example, or whatever, they can scream about like discrimination, everything is not right. And for example, the Muslims who are quite very confident about their theological speech, they may say, no, this is super wrong, we don't want to support them. Imagine now like political sensitivities trying to unite it all. How making sense it can be. It just can't by nature, like oil and water, you know, like you cannot like defend the interests of that minority and this minority at the same time and expect everyone to be happy and buddy to the buddies who would be the classical straight male or like straight female who just lived a very conventional way, the way like used to live through centuries, or people may like everybody want to be as loud as possible, so it creates contradictions. That's what I call the Jumanji of victimhood. This is just making absolute sense. I'm not even saying what is right or what is wrong. I'm just noticing what can't be mixed with what, and that cannot be mixed together. Sometimes it can. I don't know, like some feminist movements can be mixed up with some other movements and so on. Who knows? Like so, like you have like a vegan feminists go well together. Who knows? Like you find your own transformations. You like doing a fusion, and you create your new kind of proto communities. Let's say you create different communities out of other communities. And through different, or otherwise you divide and you divide and you divide. So in the group of transgender, then you will have the black trans who have different revendications than the normal, like all of them trans together. Who knows? Like can go far, you know, because there are so many individuals, billion. So do we need billion of communities at some point? Like the more different communities having different revendications we have, the messier the situation will be, the more Jumanji of victimhood it can be. And the more the tendency is to always throw the stone to some kind of other group and to allegate that you have been through the worst things ever and that you want to be supported in your fights, the more we going into a division of the people in general rather than a unity, a unification. So what was beautiful back in the past was like one of the traditional values of the left was technically this sense of solidarity, fraternity, brotherhood, to be brotherhood, sisterhood, whatever, but at least not to separate the men and the women, and inside the men and women who are LGBT or not, and so on, or like through the religion, through the color of the skin. The most beautiful thing ever was the speech of Martin Luther King Jr., who just said that he doesn't want to be judged by the color of the skin, but by the depth of his soul. That's like one of the most beautiful things a man can say, and it talks a lot about, it shows a lot about like mankind, how to establish a very healthy and proper relationship with the people in general that you want to be friend with and so on. You're checking the depth of their character, not like any kind of a priori orientations or like specializations that you have from the very beginning. And if you don't relate to these identifications the other has, you must throw the stone to him. So that's like this pity feeling I have that I want to share, that unification, to be all together, seems very, very difficult to get nowadays. And ironically, in the past generation, and I'm from the young generation, but in the past generation, the youth used to be together, and now the youth seems to be not only super conservative in the way they are offended all the time for nonsense, but also so divided. So that's the warning I want to make. And let's be careful about the Jumanji of victimhood.